You don't fear being exposed. You fear being replaced. That is the difference. No one questions your blood. No one doubts your claim. No one whispers that you stole the throne. You were born to it, and that is exactly why you cannot lose it. But the story does not begin with conspiracies. It begins with a fire. You are 8 years old the night the West Wing burns. Smoke coils through the corridors like something alive. Servants scream. Bells ring. Boots thunder across marble. The air tastes bitter. Your nurse drags you from your bed, her fingers digging into your arms. You fight her because your mother's chamber is down that hall. You remember that heat pressing against your face. You remember the doors slamming shut one by one. The king survives. Your mother does not. They tell you it was an accident. A lantern overturned. Curtains caught flame. You are old enough to understand how carefully lanterns are placed in a palace made of stone. You are old enough to notice that 3 guards assigned to that wing disappear from service the following week. You are old enough to remember the stable boy who grabbed your sleeve the next day. His hands are shaking. His face is pale. He smells of hay and cold morning air. He whispers, "It wasn't." And then he sees something behind you. His eyes flick past your shoulder, not to the guards, to someone else. Someone standing still, watching. The boy's grip loosens. His mouth stays open for a second too long. Then he swallows whatever he was about to say. "It wasn't," he repeats softly. But now the words have changed. Now they sound uncertain, smaller. "It wasn't my place to speak, Your Majesty." He steps back, bows too quickly, and leaves. He never gets to finish his sentence. And then he is found drowned in the well at sunrise. No one speaks of him again. But you never forget his face. You remember the day your father changed. The laughter that once shook the hall became a brittle echo. He hunted without armor, yet each step sounded heavier, slower. Petitioners approached the throne, but he no longer welcomed them with a smile, only a distant, guarded glance, as if the air itself might betray him. He doubled the guards, their boots echoing through the empty halls like a warning. Corridors were sealed, hidden passages bricked up, as if the walls themselves might betray him. He tasted his wine before drinking. He slept with a blade under his pillow, ready for whatever the night might bring. Even the air in the palace felt heavier, thick with the weight of his fear. He stopped sleeping ever since the fire. You begin waking at night to find him standing beside your bed, hand resting on the pommel of his sword, eyes scanning shadows only he can see. "Trust no one fully," he tells you once, voice low. "Not even those who swear to die for you." You carry that sentence longer than you carry your childhood. Years pass. Your father dies not by blade, not by poison, but by fever. Still, when he grips your wrist on his final night, sweat-soaked and fading, he whispers one word. "Watch." You take the throne at 22. The crown is lowered in full daylight, before priests and generals and thousands of kneeling subjects. They cheer. They weep. They swear loyalty that sounds eternal. You remember thinking, in that bright and holy moment, that you are safe. You are wrong. Power does not create safety. It creates height. And the higher you stand, the more directions a blade can come from. At first, you rule well. You listen more than you speak. You reward loyalty carefully. You punish betrayal precisely. The court praises your balance. The people praise your strength. Beside you stands your father's most trusted commander. He carried you from the smoke that night when your nurse stumbled. He trained you with a wooden sword. He has scars older than your crown. He kneels slower than others, not from disrespect, but from age. You trust him. You sleep without guards inside your chamber. You walk through the gardens at night with only one escort. You believe respect is stronger than fear. That belief does not survive the winter summit. It's your first gathering of foreign envoys. The grand hall glitters with chandeliers and silk banners. Wine flows. Musicians play. Diplomats bow with careful smiles. You move among them easily, confident, observed, admired. Then you see it. 2 visiting lords standing too close to one of your own dukes. Their heads bend together. The duke laughs. The sound is relaxed, comfortable. Later that night, a messenger is caught at the northern gate. He carries a coded letter hidden in the lining of his boot. It is not a war plan. It is not a threat. It is a contingency. If your rule weakens, certain nobles will support an alternative claimant from a distant branch of your family tree. A cousin, a boy of 12. Insurance, the letter calls it. Insurance in case your reign falters. Insurance in case you fail. The duke's name is written in the margin. He's one of the nobles mentioned in the letter, a man who once swore loyalty to you. He has been meeting in secret, whispering to others, testing support for the boy. Not a single act of rebellion yet, but enough to make your mind race. Because you know how quickly loyalty can shift. Because you've learned that hesitation invites treachery. Because you have begun to see threats in shadows, whispers, even smiles. Before sunrise, you sign the duke's execution order. Your hand does not shake. A king cannot hesitate over treason. When the duke is dragged through the courtyard, he looks at you not with hatred, but confusion. He doesn't understand what he's done wrong, or why the trust he once held was dissolved so quickly. Your father's friend watches in silence. For a fraction of a second, you see something in his eyes. Not doubt, not fear, something else. You begin to wonder if he thinks you moved too quickly. The thought lingers, and somewhere in the quiet corners of the palace, you imagine conspiracies forming even now, even when there are none. Even when there is only your mind, sharpening itself against shadows, preparing for the next whisper, the next betrayal, the next inevitable test. Then comes the maps, hidden beneath the cellar floor of a minor noble's estate. Names, routes, weapon counts, a rebellion forming in ink. You do not wait. Arrests, interrogations, public executions. The capital trembles. Smoke rises from the gallows, curling into the morning fog. Children stop playing in the streets. Merchants lock their doors. Nobles bow lower than they need to, muttering prayers you cannot answer. Weeks later, under torture, a prisoner laughs until blood fills his mouth. "There was no uprising," he gasps. "It was trade routes, grain storage, winter planning." You have already hanged 11 men, and still the silence gnaws at you. Every shadow is a spy, every glance a threat. A servant hesitates while serving wine. You watch him freeze. You wonder if his hesitation is loyalty or plotting. You cannot tell. You will not wait. Your father's friend requests a private audience. He says your enemies may be fewer than you believe. And in that calm voice, you hear something else. Restraint. Judgment. A challenge you cannot name. You begin to understand something cold. Anyone who prepares for your failure is already imagining it. And you, before them all, have imagined it first. You are no longer chasing conspiracies in the streets. You are chasing them in your own mind. The walls, the shadows, the empty halls, they all whisper treason. And every creak, every step, every faltering voice could be the one that ends you. The court grows quieter. Too quiet. Even loyalty feels like betrayal. Even obedience feels like a trap. And for the first time, you wonder, have you created enemies or simply given fear a shape? The palace is quieter now. Too quiet. You walk the halls in daylight, but the sun does not reach inside. Light falls in harsh lines across the marble, and even that seems not enough. The echo of your footsteps follows you like a shadow. You remember the Duke, the boy in the courtyard, dragged through the cobbled stones, confusion in his eyes. You remember the stable boy, the pale look, the words that never left his mouth. You remember the prisoner who laughed blood into his mouth, claiming there was no uprising. And you remember the smell of smoke, the creaking rafters, the streets trembling under the gallows. You wonder if it was necessary, if the fear you planted was real, or if it was only in your mind. But regret does not soften you. Regret sharpens you. You begin checking locks yourself, inspecting hidden passages, measuring shadows against the walls. Every servant becomes a potential spy, every noble a potential conspirator. Even your father's friend, his calm, measured eyes cannot escape your suspicion. You write new decrees, orders for patrols, for inventories, for inspections of grain, weapons, even the arrangements of bedrooms. Nothing is too small to escape scrutiny. Every plan you make, every precaution you take feels justified, but it also feels endless. You begin to see your own reflection differently, not as a king, but as something sharper, harder, something unrecognizable. The crown weighs heavier on your head than it ever did, not because of power, but because of responsibility. Not for your people, but for every choice that could undo everything you've built. And in the quiet hours, when the palace seems asleep, you hear their voices. The duke, the boy, the prisoner, the whispers of every life touched or ended by your hands. They are not accusations. They are reminders. You are alone. Even those who serve you do not speak freely anymore. They move as though you might strike at any hesitation, any glance, any pause. And still you tighten your grip. Locks are checked again, guards doubled, orders repeated, routes memorized, contingencies prepared. Every scenario considered, every risk measured, because fear does not die quietly, because regret does not lessen the cost. You begin to understand the cruel truth of power. It is not the crown that holds you. It is the fear you have sowed, the fear that now rules you. And as you stand in your private chambers, alone with your ledger, your sword, and the weight of every life you have touched, you feel it clearly. You are no longer afraid of rebellion. You are afraid of yourself. And that is the cruelest realization of all. Because rebellion can be crushed, enemies can be named, conspiracies can be burned. But how do you guard against your own mind? You sit in the dark and understand something your father never said aloud. The fire did not only burn the West Wing, it burned mercy. It burned trust. It burned the part of him that believed laughter was safe. You thought you were different. You listened, you balanced, you ruled with measured hands. Until the first whisper. Until the first letter. Until the first contingency. And now you stand exactly where he once stood. Blade beneath the pillow. Locks checked twice. Eyes open long after midnight. You remember waking as a child to find him standing beside your bed, watching shadows. You did not understand then. You do now. This is how it happens. Not in madness, not in sudden cruelty, but in small permissions. A justified execution, a necessary interrogation, a precaution that becomes policy, a policy that becomes habit, a habit that becomes identity. The palace has stopped arguing with you. The court no longer questions. Your father's friend speaks less each day. You notice it. You say nothing, because silence is safer, because disagreement is dangerous, because you taught them that. You move to the mirror. For a moment, just a moment, you expect to see him, your father, harder, older, suspicious. Instead, you see yourself, and the difference no longer matters. Outside, the torches burn steady. Inside, the air does not move. You realize something final. You were never afraid of being replaced. You were afraid of becoming him. And you have. Not because you are weak, not because you are cruel, but because power without trust has only one shape: control. And control demands vigilance, and vigilance never sleeps. Tomorrow the court will kneel. Tomorrow decrees will be signed. Tomorrow the kingdom will function with perfect order, and no one will dare whisper. Not about fire, not about drowned boys, not about innocent maps. They will call you strong. They will call you decisive. They will call you necessary. They will never call you afraid. But as the candle burns lower beside your bed, as your hand rests unconsciously on the hilt of your sword, as you listen for footsteps that may never come, you understand the truth history will not record. The throne was never the danger. The height was never the threat. The fire did not end that night. It moved from the West Wing into your father, from your father into you. And now it burns quietly, contained, controlled, endless, and you will guard it forever. King.